El Dorado was never just a place. It was a wound in the soul of the world, a scar left by the collision of two civilizations that were never meant to meet. The so-called New World did not discover the Old, nor did the Old conquer the New. Instead, they crashed into each other, a cataclysm that neither fully survived. And from that chaos, El Dorado emerges, a fever dream, a longing, an illusion, a lie which for the Spanish was used for conquest, and for the natives as a tool to survive. The myth did not belong to the old world or the new, but to the chaos in between, the space where neither side could ever fully claim victory. And so, El Dorado endures, not as a city of gold, but as a lingering echo of a wound that never quite healed. And it was the men who stepped into this broken world, not kings or gods, but men, ordinary and desperate and filled with miserable ambitions, who would carry this illusion on their backs. When the Spanish arrived in the New World, they did not do so as mere nobodies. They were the emissaries to the most powerful empire on earth. But for the individuals involved, the actual tiny humans at the end of the Spanish apparatus, the New World meant more than just a mission. It meant the possibility of reinvention. The second sons without inheritance, ambitious commanders seeking glory, men of fortune and ruin alike, all chasing something they could never quite name. The New World was possibility incarnate, a land where man could carve his name into history with steel and fire. But possibility alone was not enough. They needed a legend, something grand enough to justify their brutality, something brilliant enough to blind them to their own destruction. And this, in their souls, they molded. El Dorado took shape. It was not just a city of gold. It was a vision, a fevered hallucination of salvation, power, and a heaven hidden in the depths of the Amazon. For the indigenous peoples, it was a weapon and a shield, a whispered spell cast to send their invaders chasing ghosts deeper and deeper into the jungle's embrace. For the Spanish crown, it was a mirage worth chasing, a dream so radiant it justified war, blood, and empire. For the conquistadors who waded through rivers and sweat and death, it was both a curse and a last hope, a golden salvation, always just beyond their grasp. And Venezuela, where El Dorado lured men to die, became the myth's final resting place. The birth of El Dorado did not begin in Europe. It was older, woven into the fabric of the land itself. Among the Muisca people of present-day Colombia, there was a sacred rite, a coronation unlike any other. The new ruler, the Zipa, was stripped bare and covered in fine gold dust until he gleamed like a sun-born deity. Laden with offerings of emerald and golden trinkets, he was rowed into the center of Lake Guatavita, where he cast treasures into the depths, a tribute to the gods beneath the water. This was not a tale of conquest, it was a ritual of devotion, of a people who saw gold not as plunder, but as a bridge between mortals and divinity. But the Spanish, upon hearing of this golden man, twisted the ritual into something monstrous. The Zipa became a king, his ritual a gateway to an entire kingdom of bottomless wealth. The Muisca's faith was rewritten by the Spanish minds into a treasure map, their lake transformed into the mere outskirts of an empire paved with gold. This lie spread like wildfire. It leapt from the lips of desperate men, whispered from one expedition to the next, swelling in grandeur with every retelling. Each failure only made the dream more real, for if it did not exist where they searched, then surely it must lie somewhere just beyond the next horizon. Greedy kings and desperate conquistadors alike became its heralds, pouring men and resources into the jungle's abyss, convinced that one final push would turn fiction into fortune. Diego de Ordaz hacked his way through the Venezuelan wilds in 1531, believing himself on the edge of eternity. As if just beyond the next valley, the fabled city awaited. He found nothing. But by then, the fiction had already broken free, slithering through the minds of kings and criminals alike, taking root in the deepest folds of European ambition. From the cold halls of Madrid to the bustling docks in Sevilla, the legend of El Dorado spread like an unholy gospel. It was a promise that couldn't be disproven, a dream that no jungle could extinguish, and so wave after wave of men were sent to chase it, drawn deeper and deeper into the green abyss, swallowed whole by a vision that had never existed at all. Some men are too mad for legend, too cruel for hell itself. Lope de Aguirre was one of them. His descent into rebellion and madness is a tale steeped in ambition, betrayal, and a relentless quest for recognition. Born around 1510 in the Basque region of Spain, Aguirre hailed from a noble yet impoverished family. His early years remain shrouded in mystery, but his arrival in Peru around 1544 marked the beginning of a tumultuous career. He participated in the suppression of indigenous uprisings and became entangled in the internecine conflicts among the Spanish conquerors. Despite his unwavering service, Aguirre felt perpetually overlooked and slighted by the Spanish crown. In 1560, seizing an opportunity to claim the elusive riches of El Dorado and carve out his own legacy, Lope de Aguirre joined an expedition led by Pedro de Ursua. Their journey began in Peru, where the expedition set out down the Marañón River, seeking passage through the Amazon. It was an exercise in futility, a slow, suffocating march into a world that seemed designed to devour them whole. The jungle conspired against them. Dense canopies choked out the sun. The rivers ran treacherous and the heat clung to their bodies like a fever that would not break. As exhaustion set in, so too did paranoia. Aguirre, already a man of violent ambition, saw a weakness in his leader. Ursua, careful and methodical, wanted order, but Aguirre was not a man of patience. He wanted action. He wanted blood. And in the heart of the jungle, as they crossed into Machiparo territory in present-day Colombia, he found his moment. It was here that the expedition began to fracture. The indigenous people, accustomed to the Spaniards' insatiable hunger for gold, fed them stories, whispers of a kingdom hidden just beyond the horizon, just beyond the next riverbed, a familiar deception that had sent many before them chasing ghosts. As the expedition waded deeper into the unknown, Ursua's caution became unbearable. Aguirre's resentment boiled over. One by one, he turned the men against their leader. When the time came, Ursua was struck down, his body left behind as the jungle swallowed another corpse. With the blade still warm from betrayal, Aguirre took command, not as a mere soldier, but as something far worse. He did not just seize power, he declared war on Spain itself. In a blasphemous and rather spectacular proclamation, he renounced King Philip II and crowned himself ruler of an autonomous kingdom. To his men, he promised gold and vengeance. To the crown, he was no longer just a mutineer. He was a disease, a man who had severed himself from empire and reason alike. And so the expedition pressed on, no longer an expedition, but a death march led by a man who believed himself untouchable. The deeper they went, the more the jungle turned against them. The rivers, once pathways, became graveyards. The trees, once shelter, became cages. The Machiparo's whispers had done their work. Aguirre's men were lost, consumed not by war, but by the land itself. The myth of El Dorado had always been a deception, but now it was something else. It had become their executioner. Aguirre would lead his hypnotized followers down the Amazon River, eventually reaching the Atlantic Ocean. In July 1561, they arrived at Isla Margarita off the coast of present-day Venezuela. Upon landing, Aguirre swiftly took control of the island, killing the governor, Juan de Villandrando, and instilling fear among the inhabitants. This bold move was a continuation of his rebellion against the Spanish crown, as he sought to establish an independent domain under his command. From Isla Margarita, Aguirre planned to march inland to seize Panama, a strategic location that would bolster his power. However, his brutal methods and open defiance of King Philip II alarmed both colonial authorities and his own men. Facing mounting resistance, Aguirre moved to the mainland, landing in Borburata and advancing towards Barquisimeto. There, surrounded by loyalist forces and sensing imminent defeat, he turned to the one thing he had left: his daughter, Elvira. In his twisted sense of honor, he saw only two choices: allow her to be captured and used as a pawn against him, or ensure she remained untouchable. With the same ruthless hand that had felled his enemies, Aguirre took her life, a final act of control in a world closing in around him. Some accounts claim he did it swiftly, while others suggest hesitation, but in the end, her blood was the last sacrifice of his doomed rebellion. Shortly thereafter, his men turned against him, and he was captured and executed. His body was dismembered, with parts sent to various towns as a grim warning to others who might contemplate rebellion. Aguirre's journey from the depths of Peru to the rivers of Colombia to his demise in Venezuela was marked by ambition, treachery, and defiance, ultimately leading to his downfall. He believed he could outlive the empire he betrayed, but the jungle does not keep kings. But the hunger for El Dorado did not die with Aguirre. His rebellion had ended in blood, his name condemned, his body dismembered, but the myth that had driven him deeper into madness survived. It endured, shifting shape, slipping free of Spanish hands, and taking root in the minds of others. Where Spain had failed, England saw an opportunity. A new empire, a new breed of conquistador. To Sir Walter Raleigh, El Dorado too became his destiny. It was a key to proving Spain unworthy of its American dominion, the grand prize that would make England the true master of the New World. But like all who came before him, Raleigh would discover that the jungle does not keep its promises. A courtier, an explorer, and one of Queen Elizabeth I's most trusted favorites, Sir Walter Raleigh embodied the ambition of an England that sought to challenge Spanish supremacy across the Atlantic. In 1595, convinced by reports of a golden kingdom hidden deep within the South American interior, Raleigh sailed for the Orinoco, determined to stake England's claim. It was the perfect justification for a mission of plunder. Raleigh's men battled heat, disease, and the unrelenting hostility of the landscape as they pushed up the Orinoco River, guided by indigenous informants who probably knowingly led them deeper into a vast, indifferent wilderness. Raleigh convinced himself that he had found signs of El Dorado's existence. His expedition reached the city of San Tomé, then under Spanish control, and after a brief skirmish, Raleigh claimed victory. Yet the Golden City remained as ever elusive. He returned to England with nothing but stories and promises of a kingdom that lay just beyond reach. But the failure did not deter him. In his published account of the discovery of Guiana, Raleigh painted a picture of a land teeming with gold, waiting for the right nation to seize it. He described great wealth lying unguarded, rivers shimmering with ore, and an empire waiting to be claimed. It was propaganda as much as it was fantasy, and it worked. His tales stoked England's hunger for American riches, ensuring that the dream of El Dorado did not die. But the jungle, as we know, does not forgive. Years later, in 1617, Raleigh, older, disgraced, and desperate to reclaim his favor, returned to Venezuela in one final attempt at finding El Dorado. This time the stakes were higher. James I, Elizabeth's successor, had warned him that any act of aggression against Spain would cost him his life. Raleigh's men disobeyed. They attacked a Spanish outpost, igniting tensions that England was not prepared to escalate. The expedition collapsed. His son was killed in battle, and Raleigh, broken and defeated, was forced to return home in disgrace. Upon his return, the price of failure was paid in full. He was arrested and in 1618 executed by order of King James I. And so, like Aguirre before him, Raleigh was undone by the very dream he had chased. His head was severed from his body, his ambitions reduced to legend. But myths are not so easily buried. The fever of El Dorado did not end with Aguirre, nor did it perish with Raleigh. It outlived them both, shedding its conquistadors' armor, slipping from the grasp of failing empires, and finding new ways to seduce the ambitious and the desperate. In the centuries that followed, treasure hunters, prospectors, and dreamers continued the search. The legend moved beyond maps and expeditions. It became a cipher, a symbol of boundless wealth, waiting for those bold enough to claim it. El Dorado was both a symptom and a cause. In Venezuela, its shadow lingers still. It echoed golden rushes of other kinds, first in cacao, then in oil. El Dorado, in a way, did exist. It was never a city of gold, but a force, a fever, a longing buried in the human soul. It is the belief that just beyond the next horizon, wealth and power and transcendence awaits. It was not gold, but the pursuit of something greater, something that could never truly be held.